In today's video, we're going to take a look at the new features available in CloudBees CI 2.263.2.3. Are you new here? If you are, welcome. And if you are new here, you don't know who I am. My name is Darren Pope, and I'm a developer advocate for CloudBees. In January 2021, there were actually two full version releases of CloudBees CI. They were 2.263.2.2 and 2.263.2.3. We're going to take a look at the release notes to understand what is available in both of these releases. Now, if you've never looked at the release notes for CloudBees CI, let me walk you through how to find them. First off, go to docs.cloudbees.com, hover over the documentation link, click on CloudBees CI, and then underneath documentation, click on that drop-down and you'll go right over to release notes. So now that we're here at the release notes, let's take a look at what's going on here. So at the time of the recording, we have the latest version being 2.263.2.3. And you'll notice this big red block at the top. Now, depending on when you're watching this video, this color may have changed, but for now it's red according to this. And there were some regressions that caused us to do a new full release in January. There was actually another release as well in January that was 2.2. But let's take a quick look here at the 2.3. This was a security release that was released on the 21st of January. And let's just click over to full release notes for traditional platforms. And you'll notice here that this was all about the security advisory. And it affected CI, CloudBees Jenkins Distribution, CloudBees Jenkins Platform, and CloudBees Jenkins Enterprise. And it goes through all of the details here, but that was the only thing that was released in 2.3. And in fact, if you want to go through and read more details about this, you can click on the security advisory. In fact, I'll go ahead and open it up here. And it's basically just a restatement and more details around the callouts that were here in this top big red section. So as of now, that is the most current release, which again is 2.263.2.3. That is the most current release for January 2021. Now, let's go back and take a look at the first release for January, which was released on January 13th. This is where all of the big features came into play. So the most current version that you should be running today, if it's still before the February release of CloudBees CI, you should be running and installing 2.263.2.3. Now let's take a look at 2.2 and understand what the real big new features were for the January release. Okay, so if we start with traditional platforms, in this specific release for both traditional and modern, we're going to take a look at everything in the traditional side first, and then we'll look at the extras that were specific only to modern. In this case, traditional has everything, and there were just a couple of extra things for modern. There weren't any extra items specifically for traditional. So that's why we're looking at traditional first, because that will cover everything in modern. Then we'll take a look at modern and just look at a couple of the things that were specific for modern. So if we're looking at the full release notes, also for the 2.2 release, there was another security advisory that came out on the 13th. So in total for January, between the two releases, there were two security advisories. There were a handful of security fixes. Again, nothing real surprising there. Support Core has been upgraded to 2.72. Support Core is below the CloudBees support plugin. It's a dependency for that. And there were a lot of new features added into Support Core that are very, very useful. For more details about that, you can take a look at the release notes for 2.72, because those are being used as well within the CloudBees support plugin. The bigger thing that was released here is the output of a detailed technical description of potentially unsafe Groovy constructions. Previous to this, if you were doing string interpolation incorrectly, you wouldn't get a notification. But now, if you're doing incorrect string interpolation, you will get a warning message within your build log. That's what this is about. And if you want to understand more about this, you can take a look at string interpolation. This feature was actually released in Jenkins 2.263.1, and then we just made it available within 263.2.2. If you want to understand more also about what's going on within this release, just sort of at a root level, you can go back and watch a video that I did with Mark Waite, who is the Jenkins documentation officer, where we went through the full release notes for 2.63.1. We've also done a video also on 263.2, but the biggest changes happened in 263.1. So if you want more detailed information about some of these items, again, within the CloudBees release notes, we're not going to go through every item. I'm just going to call out a couple of bigger things. But if you want more details around it, you can go and watch that video that I did with Mark about the Jenkins release. A couple of enhancements we have is a new logo for Plugin Usage Analyzer. That used to have the same logo as the actual Manage Plugin section. Now it's a different looking plugin or different icon. There were a handful of changes for Operation Center Context, updated some other items here, and then here's one of the big things. If you've been using cross-team collaboration and you've been using CloudBees configuration as code, there was a bug to where you could not set the Operations Center router, and that has now been fixed, and now you can use CloudBees configuration as code to be able to configure and manage the notification subsystem for cross-team collaboration. A couple of other smaller items here around Trigger Remote Job and some S&I certificates as they related to plugin catalog. And then there are a handful of known issues that are still there and are going to be resolved a little bit later. So in this 2.2 release, as well as the 2.3, this was not a very huge release from a traditional perspective. The biggest thing probably are the two items around the cross-team collaboration with CloudBees Cask, and also the detect insecure pipeline interpolation. Those are two really, really big ones. Now, let's go over and take a look at the modern side, because if you are running modern on AWS, or you're preparing to run modern on AWS, there are a couple of larger items here. Again, most of these items are going to be or actually not even similar, exactly the same as what we saw in traditional. So I'm just going to call out a couple of specific items as they apply to modern. Again, if you're on AWS and using EKS, now the default load balancer that's used is an ALB. The combination of Nginx ingress and a classic ELB are still supported, but by default, now we are using an ALB. That's one of the bigger things for modern. There's also another one for ingress annotations that are now supported. And I believe there's one other item that I wanted to find. There was actually a fix here for saving of a pod template should not resolve in a memory object. There was a couple of edge case type things there. But those are the big items. Now also, if you're still on OpenShift 3.11, there was actually an extra check there for you. Okay. I believe that is it. It is. Cool. Now, I want to go over a couple of items as it relates to the upcoming March release. And I'm looking at my notes here. Yep, okay, good. Got them all. Let's talk about the upcoming March release. And again, if you want more details about what's coming in the March release, you can go and watch that video that I did with Mark, and that will be down in the description of this video, to where you can go and watch that in more detail, because we spend a lot more time in that video than I will here about all of the things that are happening. But there is a call out in the 2.2 release notes here, which is what I'm hovering over right here and showing on screen. They're also in the 2.3 as well. And there are 4 major changes coming in the March release of Jenkins LTS, as well as CloudBees CI. And here's the things that you need to be aware of. One of them is, actually, let's just take a look at this blog post as I'm going through it here. So there are actually some changes here, and it's a scary title. I know it says breaking changes, but you need to understand what's happening. So the 4 items, we have a CG security being changed over to Spring security. We have an unfork of XStream. We have tables to divs, and we have a jQuery change. And in fact, let me find one other item here. Let me go to the blog and let's go back over to November. This blog post as well, and both of these links that we're just looking at here right now will also be down below this video. Here are the major changes. We've got, again, just to recap it again, tables to divs, Spring security replacing a CG. We've got the XStream unfork, and we also have a jQuery upgrade. Now, tables to divs affects not only the Jenkins core, but also any plugin that has any type of UI available to it. So if you are running an older version, or maybe you've even written a plugin that has a UI part within the Jenkins UI, and you haven't done your table to div change yet, your render may look different. Again, all of this was started back with 2.264. Since everything currently right now for CloudBees CI is based on 2.263, that hasn't been introduced. But coming in March, tables to divs will be live. The second one is a replacement of a CG security with Spring security. You can go into more details there. The XStream unfork, now we're just going with now the Jenkins project is now going to be using just the standard XStream libraries that instead of having a separate fork, and then a jQuery upgrade. Again, all of these notes and much greater detail are covered in the video that I did with Mark. The link will be down in the description below. And that's a quick summary about what's been released in January 2021 with CloudBees 2.263.2.2 and CloudBees CI 2.263.2.3. If you have any questions or comments, you can reach out to us on Twitter at CloudBeesDevs, or you can reach out directly to me on Twitter at Darren Pope. If this video was helpful for you, consider giving us a thumbs up. And if you haven't subscribed yet to CloudBees TV, why not? Take a moment, click on that subscribe button, and then ring that bell, and that way you'll be notified anytime there is new content available on CloudBees TV. Thanks for watching, and we will see you in the next video.